Hey fellow gamers, Chatty Sisa here. So this is the last and third part for today with the updates on Dragon Age the Veilguard, what we have seen in the previous few days. This one is coming from an IGN exclusive, like first hands-on preview. They did do, I think, multiple playthroughs, or at least like creating multiple rogues, because we will be able to see more than one. We also get some additional information compared to what we have seen before, or some additional new info. So I hope this one will be valuable for you. I will again play it with the original sound as it is, and I will just provide my thoughts whenever I stop the vid. On this spot again, please note that this is my own subjective view, which might not be to everyone's liking, and that's completely fine. But I would still love to hear your thoughts on what we are seeing, and also on my comments. So please don't hesitate to use that comment section below. And also, if you like this vid, please don't forget to hit that like button. It's really very helpful. Thanks a lot already in advance, and have fun watching this one. The next bit of information that we've got was from IGN. It's an IGN exclusive again. It's the first hands-on preview which we received. It's about 13 minutes, as you can see on the screen. But again, I would like to highlight one thing before we review the vid. Look at the ratio. I mean, so far it was very like up and down. It was kind of a roller coaster for the vids that we have seen revealed about Dragon Age the Veilguard. Some have been doing pretty bad, some have been doing pretty good actually, and the ratio was more in favor of the likes. Some were completely highly ratioed, and many people did dislike them, like the first trailer that we have seen. And again, here I can see that the ratio is having more dislikes than likes. And the people here were complaining that there is absolutely no critique of the game within this vid, within these 14 minutes. And that everything is just praising the game. Well, of course, this is an IGN exclusive. IGN has been paid to promote this game, so of course they will not say anything critical. Now, as I said before, and I will again repeat it, I'm not here to bash the game. I'm also not going to overly praise it, but I will have to point out if I see something that's not right, and if I think that there is something that's not going to be interesting for the gamers, or there is something that is completely off for a Dragon Age game. So there will be, of course, some critique as well from my side. Now, in this case, we will watch the vid with the whole comment, so I'll leave the entire sound on of the vid so that we can hear what the person is saying that's guiding us through this vid. And then I will stop the vid in certain spots, and I will just add my comments or my thoughts to that, okay? So let's go for listening and viewing the vid.
It's been 10 long years since Dragon Age Inquisition, and the expectations for the next game in the series, Dragon Age the Veilguard, seem impossible. A full decade, a bevy of behind-the-scenes changes, and an interesting start to its marketing campaign made me a little worried for my most highly anticipated game of the year.
Yeah, I will stop it here. Again, as I said already previously, the colors seem to be really oversaturated in the game. And as many people have highlighted, the Kunari, we will see it also later in this vid. At first I thought it's just like an unfortunate choice in the character creator, how the horns were positioned, and that's why it looks so weird on this person, which we have seen already before, so on this rook. But unfortunately, as we will see on other Kunaris as well, it's not a let's say bad choice in the character creator. Obviously the horns are being placed on the head always in the same way, and it really is looking awful. It's creating this kind of weird forehead, and it just doesn't fit. I mean, the size of the face is not fitting the horns, how the horns are put onto the head. So what I think should have been done here, either the horns a little bit smaller, or in general the face larger, so that the ratio of the horns of the attachment of the place where they are attached on the forehead is not like too big compared to the rest of the face and of the whole head.
I admire you. What you've been through would break most people.
But one of my biggest concerns, based on early previews, was that it could be headed in the direction of being a linear action game rather than its more open-world predecessor. While Dragon Age is known for changing its style with each installment, I hoped dearly that it wouldn't lose too much of the DA DNA I fell in love with.
And here I would like to stop it and just mention something to what she said, what the lady said. Yes, we are aware that Dragon Age is going to change always with every game a little bit the style, and there are in certain aspects smaller changes, in certain aspects larger changes. I think in this case the change is huge compared to the previous ones. Yes, every single game was a little different than the previous one, but also for me, as I perceive it, what this means is that you've got to think about it from the game dev's perspective, that every time when you do such large changes, which change technically the whole like feeling of the game and the perception what the gamers are going to have, you have to think about it that you are going to lose at least a small portion of the old fan base, and basically you are relying upon it to find every single time a new fan base. Sure, there will be people who will be playing all the games which came throughout the whole Dragon Age series, from Dragon Age Origins over Dragon Age 2 and Dragon Age Inquisition now to this game, and who actually want to play this game no matter like what it looks and how many changes have been done. So you will still have this kind of portion of the fan base, but the let's say more, I don't know how to say, like more generic players, or the players who are just enjoying the game for what it is and are not like super fans, those might be like put off by all these changes, and you might divert to a style that's not really feasible for them and that's not really appreciated by them, and you are going to lose that portion of the fan base. So you really do have to rely upon them to find a new fan base and the new portion of the fan base with every new game if you are going to change it that much. And I think in this case, this is what's going to happen. There is already a large amount of people who have said no thank you from what they have seen. Then there is a large portion of people who are skeptical, the same way as I am. Currently, I'm still saying it's for me 50-50. I will definitely not play the game when it comes out. I will wait for the first reviews. I will be honest. For me, it's something where I don't want to, let's say, waste my money on. Not in this time, not in this situation that I am. So I'm going to think about like twice about buying a game. And if I should buy a game, it needs to be something that is having really a great story and where I like the gameplay. Currently, the story, we have a couple of clues, so I can't really say that I do not like it or that I don't like the direction. We do not know like that much yet about it. We have a couple of clues about the characters, but about those, I will talk about it in a separate vid. There are some plus points and some minus points definitely for me, so there again it's kind of a 50-50. I'm neither positive nor negative on the characters, and again we just got some superficial information but not really that much about the characters themselves and about their story arcs, so that's what's important for me and how well they are actually written. And the rest of the stuff that we have seen, again, there is some stuff which is positive, some stuff which is negative, so I'm kind of torn on this one, and I really cannot say that I would be like hyped up to look forward to the game and to want to play it day one. If the game turns out to be great, I'm definitely going to play it and I'm definitely going to buy it later on. But currently, from what I have seen, there is nothing that would make me want to play it day one, as I said. So for me, these changes, which she has just mentioned, have been quite big. and I'm not sure if I like the overall like style of the game. There are things that I love, but there are things that I don't like.
Hours of hands-on time spread across 2 days, I'm pleased to say that I walked away with excitement and curiosity, but mostly relief to wave many of those concerns goodbye. My time with the Veilguard covered a wide smattering of things, including the incredibly expansive character.
Yeah, this is what I mentioned previously. So as you can see, this is another kunari that has been created, and the horns are just positioned awfully on the head, and the kunari just don't look like kunari to me, to be honest. I mean, a lot of people have compared them to Dragon Age 2, where a lot of people have liked the kunari design probably the most from the entire series, and I do have to agree on that. So for me, Dragon Age 2 had the best kunari design, and this is just something where I will compare the design to also in this new game, and this just isn't it. This is just like human faces with horns put on top of the head, but it's not really a kunari. They had a very distinctive look, and I just miss it here.
Creator, the introductory quests, a faction mission, and a companion quest a little deeper into the game. But I was mostly pleased with my ability to just explore Northern Thedas and all its gorgeously designed glory, experiencing a setting in Dragon Age lore that we've really only heard about. To be clear, the Veilguard isn't the open-world playground that Inquisition was. As game director Corinne Bush has previously stated, it's more mission-based. But what impressed
And again, this is something that I would actually think of as a positive feature. So the open world games usually are too big. Not that I would complain when a game has a nice amount of content, but I did mention it already when I was playing Mass Effect Andromeda. There is a point when it becomes too much. So you have too many unnecessary side quests which just feel like a filler, and you don't really think that they contribute anything to the story. And in here on this spot, what they mention is that the side quest, this is not an open world, and all the side quests that you have or the areas that you are exploring, they do contribute something to the story. So this is again something where I would see it positively as a positive change.
Me after the first few hours was how much exploration can still be done in the various regions, as well as the impact the player character, Rook, can have on those regions.
And there we go. Easy.
Wow, isn't that something?
Consider it something of a mix of Dragon Age 2 and Inquisition, the more streamlined approach of the former with the geographically and socio-politically diverse world of the latter.
Districts must remain in their homes.
Yeah, this is one of the things that I have noticed, and I will mention it also later a little bit during a couple of scenes. In general, the information that we've got was that we will be able to play various areas in the game, locations. We had some pictures released from the locations. I will also talk about those in a separate bit, but we do have a view from this entire game already on many of the locations where we are going to be. And what I have noticed is that aside from a few, a lot of these locations are either themselves very dark, like here in this case in Minratos, or what I have seen, the gameplay that I have seen is taking place during evening or night. So again, it looks to be quite dark. So I'm wondering how it will be really in the game, how much time we will be spending in each area, and what the overall feeling will be. Because I do have the feeling that the critique that the fans had regarding the overall game, that Dragon Age games used to be very dark and gritty, it was in terms of story and what was happening in the game, and not necessarily dark as in visually dark. And I do believe that this is kind of something where the devs maybe compensated for this colorful, cartoony style of the characters and the trailers. So we do see a lot of colors and bright effects, but it's not like the story itself. It's giving us a more like I said, a cartoony feeling, and now it's like compensated on the other side by moving through locations which themselves are dark. That's not the dark that the people have meant. The darkness that should be in Dragon Age, not darkness as in locations. But yeah, it's just my observation. Let's see in the locations, and let's see also in these vid how many we are going to see, which are bright and which are dark.
Of course, some of the bigger art style, combat, and gameplay changes will be subject to personal taste. But after my time with the Veilguard, I left feeling like these 10 long years just might have been worth the wait. As fans have already seen from the first gameplay trailer, players are dropped right into the city of Minrathous in the middle of the action as Solus prepares a ritual that will devastate Thetis. Luckily, our old friend Varric has recruited you to help, and it barely takes a couple of minutes for the game to put the focus on Rook. After a surprisingly concise story recap from Varric, there are a number of aspects the Veilguard starts easing you into. For one, the combat. Gone are the days of Dragon Age Origins' more CRPG-inspired tactical system.
And that's exactly the problem for many players. That's what many people do not like, me included, to be honest. I am not fond of this like action style in the sense of that you have a lower amount of companions you can take with you. You have fewer skills than you ever had before, and it's just basically becoming a very colorful hack and slash game. So I'm not really fond of the gameplay, to be honest, and I'm not fond of this change. I would have rather preferred this more tactical style.
Offering a style that's a mix of quick action and a mechanic where you can pause and pull up your radial menu. While this absolutely does take some getting used to, and it'll be a gradual process to create what could be a highly customized build while learning all your companions' different abilities, it didn't take me long to actually start having fun with it. I largely played mage and rogue builds during my hands-on time, and also quickly started to lean on certain companions' abilities. For one, the mage healing ability was essential. For one particularly difficult remnant, I basically established a pattern where I was only using Balara's mana to heal me, dodging and playing it safe when it got too risky. Nev's ability to slow time was also one I kept returning to, offering a bit more control on the battlefield when the situation got a little too fast-paced.
Yeah, let me again comment a little bit here on what was said and also what we have seen. So first of all, this is a good explanation of what kind of abilities some of your companions do have. So we've got here a little bit more insight. And I think it's good that we have these various options when we want to think about which companions we do take with us into the next combat. On the other hand, from what I have seen on the screen, and that is also something that has been mentioned already a couple of times, but for me it is the same, and again I will come back a little bit to Mass Effect Andromeda. This was a critique already back then, and I think it's popping up again. The cartoony style here is causing the enemies to look kind of I don't know, less serious. I'm not sure how you would describe it, but they're definitely not looking like dangerous enemies to me in terms of how they are depicted. It was the same in Mass Effect Andromeda. I did have a good laugh about some of the cat there, and especially about the Archon, which was like the main villain of the game. He just looked ridiculous, and I am a little bit wary of how the enemies here are looking as well. The faces of the enemies, like I said, because they are so cartoony, I just don't take them so seriously. Yes, sure, I will avoid them in a fight and I don't want to get hit by them, but they just don't... evoke this kind of uneasiness in me. I don't feel uneasy, unsettled, and terrified when I see them. I just like, smirk. Okay, let me go through this fight and then off to the next one. It's kind of weird.
And for you glass cannon builds out there, you'll want to have a warrior around to taunt your enemies out of your way.
I did it, Devrin.
No problem.
Like a whole lot in the Veilguard, combat revolves around your companions, even though you can't fully take control of them like in previous Dragon Age games. Different companions have different combo options together, and there are certainly opportunities to build team synergy.
Yeah, and like I said also already before, for me this just means Mass Effect, and it's not something I am appreciating in a Dragon Age game. Again, here on this spot you can see the cooldown periods for your companions are way too long. 30 seconds is in a fight, and especially in a quick one like this one, in an action RPG, 30 seconds is too much. Basically your companion, that one which is in the cooldown, becomes unusable at this point for the next half a minute.
And you'll want to listen to your companions in combat too, as they'll occasionally drop some useful hints.
Hitting us from range.
But combat aside, your dialogue choices, your rook's background, and the frequent decisions you make are immediately important, which shouldn't be too surprising for fans of Bioware games. The dialogue wheel is back, of course.
Yeah, I am wondering from what I have seen so far, how much the things that the character is saying, or Rook is saying in the end, how will they be different compared to what you see in the wheel, in the dialogue wheel? Because that was something that was also highlighted in the previous games from Bioware, that oftentimes you have seen something as a reply in the dialogue wheel, which gave you the impression that there will be a specific certain answer or type of answer behind that specific option. And then when you clicked on it, suddenly your character said something completely different, and something that absolutely you did not intend it to be said. So I am wondering how the differences will be here, and how well the dialogues will be working out. So what really is written in the dialogue wheel, if it will match what your character actually says in the end.
As is the approval-disapproval system.
We haven't got a lot of time. Varric said you had a lead on Solus?
You get right to the point.
But I was surprised to see that the Veilguard actually explains the consequences of some of your dialogue choices in very clear terms.
See, you say that.
It's a variation of the so-and-so will remember that system, but more specific.
But we do have Nev's location now, so...
Take, for example, my first confrontation with Solus, aka Fen'Harel, aka the Dreadwolf. I chose a more sarcastic, humorous approach with him, and at the end of our confrontation, text on the side of the screen informed me that I have traded verbal jabs with Solus.
This is your responsibility now.
It was far from the only occurrence of this sort of text, and it leaves me curious as to how your relationships with various characters will build and branch out over time based on your attitude. Speaking of consequences, it quickly became clear to me that there would consistently be tons of choices in the Veilguard that'll have lasting results. It probably sounds like I'm stating the obvious here, but I got the sense that even more of these kinds of choices might be peppered throughout than the usual Bioware game. Right at the beginning, for instance, I made
just one quick mention here on this spot. There is nothing new here from what I have seen, so this is really in terms of the previous games, it's the same. So the decisions that you are making, if you are making them, or if you have some dialogue options and you are having certain people around you, certain companions, some of them might be happy about what you are saying or what you are doing, some of them might not be happy about it. So we'll probably have to be very careful whom you take with you to certain quests, and also we'll probably have to be very careful like which options we choose, depending on like with whom we want to be, let's say, on the good side. Again, if I just remember Dragon Age 2, which I have played the most of all the games, there was very often the case that you had to make a decision for or against the mages, and depending on whom you had in the party, this could have really backfired. So if you wanted to, let's say, be nice to Anders and you wanted to make sure that the mages are with you and they are positively inclined to help you out, then you had to be very careful not to do any activity, let's say, or any dialogue option which would be going against them. If you had, for example, Anders or Meryl in the party, or any other like companion that would be negatively affected by it. So this is nothing new from what I have seen, and I'm happy that it actually stays this way, because it gives an additional layer of complexity between your main character and your companions.
A choice that led to Harding getting injured, and she was still bruised up for the remainder of the next couple hours. I felt like a real jerk about it, and that was probably the point. Dragon Age the Veilguard seemed to be telling me, right from the start, that I'm going to feel like a jerk a lot.
You don't.
Okay, and again, I stop it here, and this one is something that I want to highlight as super negative for me. I am not interested in playing a game that will tell me that I am a jerk and that will make me feel like a jerk most of the time. If you think that this is a positive marketing or advertisement point, then oh good lord, no way. I mean, this is going to hellishly backfire. Because if I want to play a game, I want to play as the hero of the game, and I want to, let's say, have the good guys win, and I want to have a good feeling after I finish the game. I definitely do not want to play a game where I'm going to feel most of the time like a jerk. So this one is something that they should probably have not said openly like this in a vid.
Don't slow down for much, do you?
Without spoiling too much, you'll also be able to see some of your progression and choices in the environment around you as well. But once introductions were out of the way, it was time to explore the wide world of Thetis and see its past and present collide.
Shall we?
Let's do this.
As mentioned earlier, one of my biggest worries was that the Veilguard could end up being more linear in its approach, trading branching gameplay for a straight line. And sure, the opening hours, essentially the tutorial zone, are a little railroady, save for a couple key decisions you have to make. But once you're past that and more established within Act 1, you're much more free to tackle quests as you please as you unlock more and more regions.
And on this spot, I am wondering, how long will this prologue section be? Because we have seen games from Bioware where the prologue was a very long one, and it was oftentimes longer than the other sections of the game. So if I'm having a very linear gameplay for, let's say, a third of the game, it's not going to be that much fun. If it's just a small portion and then you have really many hours that you can spend in a non-linear gameplay, then it's a completely different story. So I'm wondering how long this prologue section will actually be.
You do this via the Crossroads. For those of you who aren't brushed up on your Dragon Age lore, that's a nexus between the waking world of Thetis and the metaphysical realm of the Fade, through which the ancient elves would travel through magical mirrors called Alluvians. You now use the Alluvians for that same purpose, and to unlock new regions, you have to fight through certain areas of the Crossroads before you can start fast traveling to them. Unlocking said regions opens up a vast network of areas, and not unlike past Dragon Age games, they're dramatically different from one another.
As the gods' champion passed freely, so will you.
Take, for example, the Arlethan Forest, a gorgeous, colorful region that mixes greenery with elven magic. You can see nugs burrow into the grass, magical artifacts abound, and there's a vast array of nature to simply admire. You're hit with a massive tone shift, however, when you head to Haussburg.
Lavender.
And again, this is one of those areas which I have mentioned previously, that they look like they are very dark, and it's either because the region as such is very dark or because the portion of the gameplay that we can see is during the evening or during the night. So I'm wondering if this is like the entire time looking this way, every time when we visit, or if there will be a day-night cycle, so you will be able to see this during the daylight and during the day with the day colors. It's a big question mark for me.
Village. Whatever happened here looks like Demeter's Crossing.
Currently under siege by the Blight, here is where you'll see some of the more horror-inspired aesthetics, and frankly, just some of the grosser aspects of the Blight. While the Veilguard's tone certainly leans more high fantasy in places like the Crossroads, don't worry. Those who miss the gore and dark fantasy of Origins will find that too in places where the Blight has spread. But I couldn't help but spend a lot of my time just running around in Treviso, the bustling city that's home to the Antivan Crows faction. For one thing, a lively city feels like a novelty in Dragon Age.
And again, we are visiting an area probably during the night, so is this going to be the whole time, or is this really having a day-night cycle, and are we able to visit this also during the day?
There was simply so much to explore that I kept getting sidetracked. A merchant with unique items here, a new quest to pick up over there, and a random combat encounter over there. And that's just when I wasn't looking around for a cat or dog to pet. Because yes, you can pet the cats and dogs.
Okay, on this spot, I want to mention something that was creating a huge hype. First of all, that was the hair and the hair physics. The second one was this mention of being able to pet the cats and dogs. It's a nice feature, also like the hair. It's great to see that it's moving and that it really looks like very realistic. But it is not something that should be like the main point of the marketing. This is not something that's so important for the majority of the players. I'm pretty sure that there will be a lot of players who will enjoy it. I also enjoy it if I see a great hairstyle and I'm able to create a very beautiful looking main character, and the hair is one part of it, so I'm definitely going to enjoy that one. And sometimes I like little details like this one, which they mentioned, that you can pet the cats and dogs. Maybe I'm going to do it once or twice when I have the option in the game, but that's about it. It's a nice to have feature, it's a nice little detail, but it's not something that is the deciding factor for me whether a game is good or not, and that is the same for the other gamers as well.
Outside of the cats and dogs, there are some unique ways to interact with the environment as well. Each companion has an environmental ability, some of which came in quite handy for me. In my time in the Arlethan Forest, I frequently called upon Balara, whose environmental ability allows her to tinker with magical artifacts. In a nice quality of life feature, your companions don't even need to be in your party in order for you to use these abilities. As an aside, another one of my favorite quality of life additions is the fact that party banter pauses and picks up again later if you trigger combat, a cutscene, or anything else that would interrupt their dialogue. That's right, no more awkward standing around in order to hear the complete conversation.
And on this spot here, I have to say this is also, again, something maybe superficial for many gamers, but for me, I think it's very important to not break the immersion, because that is something that would also not realistically happen with your companions if you would be there and you would be talking to them, or they would be talking together to each other, and nobody stops suddenly in the middle of a sentence and then never ever finishes what they are saying. Most of the people will finish what they are saying, and then the, let's say, action or activity continues. Or if they stop in the middle of the sentence because, I don't know, suddenly a fight breaks out, then definitely afterwards they will finish the thought. They will finish what they were saying. This is something that has bothered me a lot in the previous games. It's in general something that bothers me, not just on Bioware games, but in general on every game where you have some kind of party banter and it just stops somewhere in the middle because of some action that's going on and it never finishes. And I think you're missing out on a lot of information and a lot of fun stuff, you know. So this is something that I'm seeing very positive now at this point, that there is a party banter that will be resuming, so you will not miss out on this information and on these interactions.
Yes.
If you're feeling overwhelmed, the difficulty and accessibility options do allow for about just as much or as little hand-holding as you need. For example, with one Antivan Crow's quest I was doing, I could turn the navigation on and simply follow the game's guidance, or turn it off and look for clues in the environment to follow. In this case, the crow's purple symbol painted on certain walls.
Another mark this way.
And this one is again a nice feature, which I like, that you can actually turn off and on certain things in the game, so that you can customize it really to your own like preferences. Do you like the help? Do you like to see all these, I don't know, exclamation marks and all of these pointers and waypoints, etc.? Or would you rather like to, let's say, try to figure it out on your own? I like it that you can customize this one, so it's something that I see positively in the game.
Also just happened to be playing an Antivan Crow Rook while completing this quest, which led to some fun dialogue options.
We crows are all the army Antiva has, but it's not like we can field a garrison.
Once I was in the thick of things, I could clearly see the features in the Veilguard that boiled down to, okay, we heard the complaints about Inquisition, specifically addressing the infamous Hinterlands problem, which is a reference to the first open-world area players visit in Inquisition. The zone was packed with more than 50 side quests, many of which boiled down to mere fetch quests, and it left many players drowning in a bevy of checklists that felt inconsequential to the story. The Veilguard has boiled this down quite a lot. You're still free to explore, but the scope isn't nearly as dizzying, and the quests point back to the main story, a region or faction, or a companion. Another clear reaction to criticisms of Inquisition are our villains in the Veilguard, Algernon and Gillenane. The two elven gods feel much more present throughout the events of the early game than Corypheus, the frankly lackluster baddie of Inquisition.
Whatever comes, we're ready for a fight.
Words easily said, but rarely proven.
While there's a whole lot more Thedas to see and talk about, I'd be remiss if I didn't bring it back home to the lighthouse. The lighthouse will likely be the most important location of the Veilguard, serving as the hub for you and your companions. Each one of your companions has their own room, and conveniently, a light shines outside of their door when they have a cutscene available. Once you get further into Act 1, it certainly starts to feel more lived in, and you can discover some pretty charming character quirks. For example, I found that Emmerich's skeletal assistant Manfred enjoys spending time on the balcony, and we even got a few games of rock, paper, scissors in.
Yeah, again, this is something which is highlighted here as a fun portion of the game. I'm sure it's nice to have this kind of little details, and somebody had a good idea to incorporate something funny like this, but it's not saying anything about the story and of the game. It's not saying anything about like how the story of the characters is, how it all ties in with the main story. This is some superficial stuff. Yeah, it's nice to have, it's a fun feature, but it's not something that will definitely sell the game.
The lighthouse is also, obviously, where you're able to do some housekeeping, especially when it comes to the caretaker.
Offer, dweller. I will answer.
This wildly helpful spirit is always standing by to help you enchant and upgrade armor for you and your companions. But I found the lighthouse somewhat symbolic of one of the biggest challenges this game is facing: bringing in new players while honoring the now incredibly vast lore that Dragon Age has built across the games, comic books, short stories, and more. Basically, if you...
And that's what I have mentioned. So if you are making a game in a series, and every time you are making a new game in a series in a very different manner than the previous ones, you are going to lose a certain portion of your original fan base, and then you rely upon getting a new one, right? So that's what I mentioned previously. Now, I was wondering how they are going to tie in all the information which is related to the Dragon Age lore and canon, and how do they want to introduce this to players which are completely new and have never played the previous 3 games.
If you are worried that the name change from Dragon Age Dreadwolf would mean less Solus, think again. His history, along with the history of the other elven gods, is baked into the lighthouse, and you learn more and more about the threat you face as you unlock Solus's murals with various wolf statues. You even get to see some of his memories firsthand.
They need gods who can protect them.
We are not gods. You will learn that.
As a lore nerd, I very much appreciated this, as well as the various other callbacks to series history. The Origins fans will likely love the Grey Warden heavy quests, and we already know the Inquisitor will be involved in some way, as you can recreate them and select your world states in the character creator. But I do wonder if it'll overwhelm new players, which Bioware certainly seems to be courting with its action-heavy combat system.
Yeah, this is something where I do have to criticize it. This is a game that the original fan base or the original fans were waiting for 10 years. They don't care whether you are overwhelming new players or not. We have been waiting for this game for 10 years because we want to continue the story, the whole story of the Dragon Age universe and of all the characters that we have come to love and which we have played, and each one of them had a certain cameo in the previous games, and we had some repeating characters that were popping up. Now we know that we can import the Inquisitor if we have played Dragon Age Inquisition, and yeah, I don't care if it's overwhelming new players or not. And that's again coming back to the problem. If you are creating a game in this way, you are definitely relying upon new fans that will be coming to your games. Now, if you want to cater to those, you are going to lose your original portion of the fan base. I'm not sure if that's the best way how to deal with a franchise like Dragon Age, or in general with any franchise. If I compare it to something like, for example, The Witcher games, every single one of those has been a little bit different, of course, just also because of the technical abilities that were better with every game, of course, but also because they wanted to also get some new fan base and new players, but they wanted to add it to the original fans. And if you look at the games from Witcher 1, from Witcher 2, up to Witcher 3, basically what they managed to do is they kept the same feeling of the game, and they kept the same lore, canon, and everything was set in a universe where you understood how it works, where you understood how the characters are connected to each other, where you understood the entire story, and the overall feeling that you had was very consistent. So they didn't have a problem to draw in new fans while they were still able to retain the old ones. I'm not sure if Dragon Age will be able to do it with this game if it's so different compared to the previous ones. And I'm not sure, even from some of the information that we have seen, if we are not a little bit deviating from the lore or the canon that was established in the previous games. It's nothing major, but it's just little bits and pieces here and there, which I'm noticing.
That's why it helps, at least, to have something of an outsider like Rook to take the helm of the Veilguard. Plus, the scrappiness of Rook reminded me a bit of playing as Hawke in Dragon Age 2, rather than the more Chosen One-esque protagonists of the Warden in Origins and the Inquisitor in Inquisition. In short,
and again, here on this spot from my side, this is something that I actually personally see very positively. I'm very inclined towards characters like Hawke in Dragon Age 2, and if it's the same here for Rook, it's something that I really appreciate. It is that the character is not, as she said, some chosen one, pre-established, predefined personality that needs to take the helm, but it's kind of a hero from the common people that just rises up to the occasion and takes the helm. So I do like this one little bit in the game.
A lot's changed in Dragon Age the Veilguard, but there was so much I was relieved to see stay. The focus on companions and romance, the rich lore, and a gorgeous world to explore. It goes without saying that there's still a ton of the Veilguard that I haven't seen, especially if it's as big as Origins and Inquisition, and it certainly seems like it. But after finishing my preview, I found myself even more eager to dive into it, and much more hopeful that this could be the hit Bioware needs.
And And to be honest, I would have preferred to hear at least a little bit of a criticism, not because I want to indefinitely criticize the game, but I do have to say this is so blatantly obvious that IGN is paid just to promote the game. Honestly, even if you get paid to promote something, it doesn't necessarily mean that you cannot say something critical or that you cannot highlight that something could have been done better. But these days I have the feeling that any type of criticism is seen as something absolutely terrible, even if it's meant in a good way, and even if it's like constructive, it's just something that is not being done anymore. And I don't think this is very helpful. If people just see this kind of preview as we have seen now for these 14 minutes, and you don't hear one single negative thing mentioned, then people are going to be skeptical and people are not going to trust it. So logically, there were comments in the comment section where the people were pointing this out. No game is 100% awesome. There will always be something, at least some little details on every game where the people will say, okay, this could have been done a little bit better. And I would have expected to see that. So of course, this helps to explain as well the ratio, why people have ratioed this, because this is just praise, 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 and not a single thing said, okay, hey guys, maybe we should look out this for this and this, right? Yeah, a ton of people pointing out the Konari, just like I did. That's one of the things which you can see here. I think this one is hitting the nail on its head. Whose idea was it to create a childlike game like this out of Dragon Age of all things? As you can see, it has like 1.1k likes. So a lot of the people are having the same feeling and they are not really like so fond of what they have seen so far. That's why I said even people who are actually wanting to play the game will probably be skeptical about it. There are people who outright refuse it. There are people who are skeptical at this point. I think this is just really saying it out loud, what a lot of people are thinking. Let's see when the game comes out. This is currently the review, what we have seen so far from IGN. Whenever there is another new information released, I will come back again to this topic and make a new vid. And that was it for the updates for today. So we've seen quite a few bits. We have seen some screenshots, we have seen some updates on companions, and now the additional gameplay and the additional information that we have received from IGN. I would love to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. And if you like this vid, please don't forget to check out also the other stuff which is on my channel, which will be either here or here. It would be really great if you would have a look, and if you like the channel, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button and also the bell icon, and you will be notified every time when there is a new vid posted from my side. Thanks a lot for watching, stay tuned and game on!